Hello, everybody. We are so excited to welcome Brady to our Spotlight group coaching call today. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to allow another moment or two to let everybody shuffle in before we go ahead and get started. But we are so excited. We had so many fantastic questions. And Brady, thank you so much for being here and for giving of your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kira. Thank you, Filmmaker Academy. And of course, thank you to everybody that's here and trickling in here as well. This is exciting for me. As you guys know, if you know me, probably like teaching, I probably like to ramble. So it's definitely going to be an interesting rabbit hole of a coaching session here. Kira, cut me off if I get too far away. If you guys don't know me, I appreciate you coming on this. It's great to meet you over Zoom as best we can here, and I hope that we have a fun. How long is this? Hour and
Hour
a
and a
half?
half.
However
Yeah,
long
hour
it
and a
ends
half.
up.
Uh-huh.
Knowing me, it'll be like 5 hours. So
No worries. I mean, same with Shane. And so we're super excited, you guys. So I'm just going to go ahead and start. I know my screen's being shared. Just going to start talking about a few things that's going on that I'm sure a lot of people understand. So unfortunately, you might be affected by this in Los Angeles if you were here, or obviously most people in the country know what's going on and in the world here in our beloved community of Los Angeles. My name is, to introduce myself because I always forget to introduce myself. My name is Kira. I am Shane and Lydia's daughter. I've been working with Filmmakers Academy now for about 4 years. I'm an actor. I'm an LA native, and I help run all the social media and marketing for Filmmakers Academy. So one really quick thing that I wanted to say is just the absolute devastation that has taken place in this city the last week. I have friends who don't have homes anymore. My preschool that I went to is burnt to the ground. I and Brendan and myself had to evacuate. It's just been a week of uncertainty, of tragedy, and of just such extreme loss. And a lot of these losses in people, like, have been in the industry and are in the industry. So we already know that the industry in Los Angeles has been very tumultuous and unkind to a lot of our working professionals these last few years. And on top of that, now a lot of those people are displaced and have lost their homes. So I'm asking if you guys can, every little bit counts. You have no idea, even a dollar can help somebody. So we're just asking, working with Production Connect and the other people listed below to just really have a massive GoFundMe. And I know we will be dropping the links in the chats, both on the platform and here. And we are specifically going through and going to be selecting people that are in the industry and making sure that we are directly helping them in this time. So any little thing that you can give, we really appreciate it. And if you're in Los Angeles, we're praying for you. If you've been affected, if you have people that have been affected, it's just absolutely tragic. And we just, we're here as a community. And what I will say, that the link that is also dropped is a massive Google spreadsheet that is over almost 200 people's GoFundMe's that are in the industry. There's local AD key grips, there's hair and makeup, there's every department listed on there. So please, that Google spreadsheet, if you can't give, please share it to those who can, because we really do just want to make as much of an impact as possible during this I hate how many times they've said unprecedented, so I refuse to say that word. So let's just say this catastrophic time. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. So please click the links and donate, because it's really going to help. And then together we will rebuild. This is what the Palisades looks like right now. And I have many friends who live there. I've been there. I've hiked in that area. And it's just, I believe that we will rebuild, but it's not going to be easy. It's going to take a long time, and we need to help each other. So anyway, I just wanted to go ahead and start off on that note. And I hope that everybody is safe who's joining us. Really quickly, I know that we have a lot of Brady's audience here. So, Brady, thank you for bringing your followers, whether it's from your YouTube channel, your Instagram. We're just so grateful to have new people who maybe really don't know what Filmmakers Academy is. So, I wanted to go ahead and let everyone know about this amazing community and everything that we've been doing. So, whether you're brand new here or a previous member, we're just so excited to have you here today. And basically, what Filmmakers Academy does is we bridge the gap between theory and practice. So we get to virtually take you onto Hollywood level sets, no matter where you are, if you don't have access to the high-end gear, equipment, or maybe knowledge that is typically very gate kept in this industry. We kind of blow all of that up. We don't care. We want to share the knowledge. We want to bring everyone here as a collective to just share information. So that's who we are. And we always our, mission is tip of the spear knowledge. A lot of the time, people in film schools always tell us, like, they learn theory or they learn this or they learn that, but their professors and people that are around them aren't actually really working anymore, right? Or maybe aren't trying the latest and greatest or aren't out there trailblazing. So just know that all of our mentors and affiliates and everyone we work with are working professionals who really deliver that tip of the spear knowledge that I said is normally extremely gate kept. So that's what we're all about. And then what we offer a kind of overwhelmingly amount of content, but don't worry because we have great filters and things to find it. But it is very overwhelming for the first time. It's like over 1,000 hours of content that is cinematography, directing, editing, color correcting, producing, direct commercial directing. We have so many things, grip and electric. We really love to show almost every aspect of the craft with our main flagship being cinematography. Coaching sessions. This is what the one we have with Brady is our guest. We do these once a month. We're super blessed and thankful to offer our members direct time with industry professionals, right? That's very rare. And that's, you get to get your question answered. And then we have a wonderful community. I see so many of our own members here that come to every one of these coaching calls, that participates. And it's so beautiful to see our community always coming together. So that's something else. And then the opportunities that set us apart is our on-set shadowing. When Brady was a part of our night cinematography masterclass, we had so many FA shadowers that flew in from all over the world, from Germany, from Prague, and from Italy, just to be on set learning with all of us. And it was absolutely amazing. So we do offer these opportunities to members. We have in-person events, and basically we just want to be a hub where all of us as a community can learn, grow, and come together. So that's what we're all about. If you don't know, we do offer, for those who maybe want to test us out before becoming a paid member, we do offer a free membership tier. So you guys can either scan this QR code, or I believe Alix, our amazing customer service, will be dropping the FA Essentials membership link for everybody. So just know we would love to have you, whether you can pay or not, just be a part of this wonderful community. And with that, let's dive into it. So I am so excited to welcome, as I already did, Brady. We got to work with him. I mean, it's kind of crazy how full circle everything has gone. I met Brady last year at NAB, almost a year ago now, and immediately was, we just sparked up a conversation, got to know more about each other, and I was like, we would love to have you involved with Filmmakers Academy in any way possible. Loved his content on YouTube, and then cut to, last October, we were 6 months after we met, he was on set with us, helping us, being a part of our biggest night cinematography masterclass, which we can also drop the links to that for people who want to learn more. And yeah, so anyway, Brady is a very talented filmmaker. You're based in Salt Lake City, right? Utah?
That is correct. Salt Lake
Amazing.
City, Utah. Love it out here, man.
So
It's
he's
so great.
Yeah, so he's in Salt Lake City. He has a lot of great content, indie filmmaking, but also has gotten to work with a lot of amazing brands. And anyway, so enough of me talking, Brady. We're so excited to have you. Anything else you want to add before we get into it?
Nothing else other than a huge thanks. I'll probably say it a zillion old times here, but it's a little bit overwhelming. You know, there's a lot of us here, so thank you so much. Like I said before, I love teaching. I love sharing. This coffee's starting to hit, so I think this is only going to get better as the call goes on here. But that's all I've got to say to start.
Amazing. And my tea's hitting right now too. So here we go. So I'm gonna call because there's so many people here. I'm gonna make sure that I'm trying to find everybody. But
Hmm.
they might, Brady, they may or may not be on this call, but I think it's still worth answering
Yeah.
questions. But I did find Chris. Hi, Chris. So I'm gonna just quickly go through your question, and then Brady is going to answer it just so we can get through as many as possible. And then if you have
Hmm.
any follow-up questions to his answer, you can go ahead and ask those. So basically, the topic for his question was cinematography approach and techniques. So what is the current challenge he would like to overcome? Shooting with two handheld cameras for walk and talk and other settings for company promos in the style of Anthony Bourdain's show. So low budget, looking for some suggested lighting solutions. And then what are you currently doing to conquer this challenge? Pre-lighting a dedicated interview area, no lighting outdoors, looking for indoor lighting solutions that are quick and nimble for walk and talk situations, probably with students as the grip and electric crew. And then what knowledge would you like to learn from Brady? Just camera settings for the FX3 cameras on gimbals and very simple lighting suggestions. What a great
Hmm.
question to start us off. Go for it, Brady.
No, that's awesome. So I think that walk and talks are fun. So I would say that we'll also kind of intertwine the FX3 because I'm assuming, Chris, you're using the FX3 for these said walk and talks. Fantastic. Love that. Okay, so walk and talks, it's essentially the second you kind of move out of an area when it comes to lighting, it becomes incredibly difficult, or I guess a whole different level of things because it's like instead of lighting me in this beautiful interview here, I'm getting up and walking across the building or whatever it is. So one thing that I've found, especially with kind of in this budget on the fly kind of minimal setup, is taking the approach of one, utilizing what you've got. So like natural light is always going to be the most beautiful. So I mean, if you can walk and talk along banks of windows, or if you can find like practical lights, like I've got one dancing back there, and just find almost like these, because I really treat it as like a dynamic moving scene, how we would block it in a commercial or a film or whatever. So you're kind of blocking or staging or guiding your walk and talk if you have that flexibility to walk by these pools of light. So instead of just trying to constantly keep them lit, it's almost like we're just like, say I walk by this wall and I've got the window here, maybe push in a light there and just like let a hard light play as sunlight or whatever. So it's really just bringing up level as things start to taper off and get dark, you find some sort of pool or add some sort of pool of light. Because when I first, I had a few projects, and of course, you know, you still have like the walk and talks where we're bringing like a soft box with you and stuff like that. But I really like the approach of bringing talent to the light, whether it's like an actual actor in a narrative film, or if it's corporate stuff where they're just walking and talking about whatever the topic is. So finding these pools of light is a great way to do that. And to circle back with like the budget side of things, if you've got no lights, like windows, stuff like that, finding practical lights or even moving lights. Like say, I'll just take that, run it to a dark area, and then they've got an area to run through. I use practicals all the time. Or just punching in lights of like, say there's a dark hallway, throw one beam of light there, hard or soft. So they just have something to walk through. And it really just keeps these checkerboard pools of light to keep this interest because you want to, darkness is okay. I think that's one thing that I learned a few years back is it's okay to fall into darkness. We don't need to always have somebody always lit. Of course, with corporate commercial stuff, they want to be lit a little bit more and they've got to be a little bit more beautified, but still keeping this mindset of it's okay to fall out of the pretty light and then come back into the pretty light because that's natural. That's what we do in day-to-day life is we're walking around the city or buildings or whatever. Um, so does that answer any, or do you have any like additional parts to that, or is that answering that kind of so far?
Yeah, that helps a lot. I was a gaffer for a pretty long time, so all that makes sense to me. But it's actually nice to be reminded that you can bring the talent to the light. You don't have to force the
Hmm.
scene to be in a certain spot. So when I go to the location scout, Fortunately, I know the dining room has light on 3 sides. The big dining room that we're going to be in is it's basically a hotel dining room. So
Okay.
I have an opportunity, I think, to with the low angle of the sun right now, even with some overhangs, I'm probably going to have some hard light coming in that I can
Nice.
either reflecting off of something or even put them right in it.
Hmm.
Just use a little bit of bounce card. I just want
Yeah.
the camera operators to have the ability to come around a 4-top table at will. So I'm not
Hmm.
going to probably preset any lights from that. I might just drop one lantern in the center, pre-mount the lantern in
Yeah.
daylight, and hope that that kind of covers us enough for fill, and then kind of let the light
Yeah.
do what it's going to do. I'm with you. I don't think they have to be perfectly lit all the time on a walk and talk tour of a building. It's not realistic anyway. I would really
Yeah.
rather them look dark sometimes than to look artificially lit.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
agree with
kind of
that.
my goal. Uh,
Hmm.
so if that sounds feasible to you, the only other question I have for you is there a particular setup that I might want to, or LUT, or anything that I might want to, or setting I might want to put into the Sony camera that would give me a little more forgiveness in the shadows so that I'm not fighting quite so hard in post? That would be my other.
Yeah. Are you shooting and everything in S-Log, or are you doing a Rec 7 and 9 kind of through and through?
I was going to do S-Log,
Yeah.
Cineo.
Yeah, so I would say going with that is a great approach. I've found that going, I want to be mindful of, sounds like there's a lot of windows there, so not going 2 stops over, but somewhere in that 1 to 1.3 plus range. Just because I've found that Sony's are a little bit more forgiving on that north end of the
Yeah.
EV range.
Yeah, they
But
don't like the
something I
shadows
I
as much.
use as reference LUTs. Of course, they don't bake in, but I've always just got the Joel Familaro's Phantom LUTs. He's got a great pack. I got them, geez, years ago, and it's just embedded into all the color profiles of all my Sonys. So I think that those just look a little bit better than the baked in Sony Rec 7 and 9 preview LUTs. Of course, we're not baking in that file. Once you
Right.
get it out, it's still an S-Log file. But just as reference, I've found that it just gives me a little bit better idea of what that's going to look like.
What
And
was
it
his
just
last
gets it a
name
little
again?
bit further.
What was his name?
You can look them up by Phantom Lutz. So just
Okay.
Phantom Lutz. And I can type that in here, right? Um, and they're the RE, I think it's the RE Rec 709 conversion Lutz.
Mhm.
I apologize for my caps typos. So that's in the chat for everybody, but they've got them just not for Sony. They've got it. I don't even know. I think he's got it for Black Magic color science. He's got it for red color science. But those are so many people that I know. I got introduced to them through Julian Jari, who's a fantastic DP director. He introduced me to them because his work looked gorgeous. So I was like, I want whatever that is.
Yeah,
And
that's
honestly,
awesome.
I use it as a grading base too.
I'm always looking for more LUTs. I mean, it's just so handy to have that. And if I can see that the darks are not too dark through that LUT, then I'm going to feel
Hmm.
good about it. And like you said, I'm not going to worry about the high end that much. Because if I see the
Yeah.
high end, it's only because I'm seeing a window. If that blows out, in
Hmm.
my case, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It's going to be about the
So
face.
they
I appreciate you so much. That sounds
Of
great.
course. And for that that circle table setup that you had, there's the option of the lantern, but I've been and totally you can ignore my advice, but I've always been playing with shooting like a spot off table and letting it cast. So if you're
Oh
not getting
yeah,
enough
yeah.
or if
They
it's too
used to be the only
stilly,
way to do it back in the old days. Is
I love
we would.
doing it.
I mean, back in the old days, I had to be a 1200 par HMI even show
Yeah,
up, right? So that's the school I came from. I'm old. So yeah, no, I love that. If they have a white tablecloth, I'm absolutely going to slam a light down onto that tablecloth.
amazing. I
Yeah.
love it. Sounds exciting.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
That was amazing, guys. Woo! First question done. And we're getting some great questions, Brady, in the chat and the platform. So we're
Amazing.
excited to add those. So thank you so much, Chris, for that question. Next question, you guys. I definitely do not want to butcher this name. I'm not sure if you're here. But again, even if you aren't here, if you submit your questions ahead of time, we still like to answer them. So I believe the name is Cola Wool. I hope I didn't butcher that. I'm so sorry if I did. If you're here, please unmute your or get ready to come on. If not, no worries. But the topic for the question was cinematography approach and techniques. The challenge is lighting. They're working on a short film and then how to take that bold step. So not a whole lot of detail, but maybe more of a generic topic, Brady, of maybe when you first
Hmm.
started out and you were, you know, gearing up to shoot your first short film and having, you know, not feeling maybe as confident or being a beginner with your lighting? Like, do you remember that? Any tips that you have or suggestions for people? I think that's just a very useful question for a lot of our members.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of different directions we want to go here, and I'm envisioning all of the bordering cringy experiences that I had of trying to bite off more than I can chew when I started. Let me think here. So short film lighting is fun. I think I want to go in that direction because one thing that I did, especially in the beginning, I like I said, I bit off a lot more than I could chew. I thought I could do all of these crazy lighting setups, and it was, mind you, just me. I didn't even have a gaffer. I was the DP. I didn't really even know that a gaffer was a thing at this point. But I would try to light all of these like house setups from, there's one project in particular where I would light it from, like I was trying to do 360, light the entire house. And one, it was like the fixtures I had my hands on just weren't as bright and like weren't bright enough to do what my like crazy imagination had. And it was just like 10 different units, and I didn't understand power distro or lighting or any of this complex stuff. I was just winging it. So I mean, it's great for that because it taught me a lot. But one of the things that it did teach me was not to, like, instead of faking to try to make it this huge polished thing that I have in my head, and obviously falling short because I did not have the expertise or the bandwidth or the manpower to do it. Instead, just shaping it to be like, what are my resources and what do I have lighting wise? What do I have access to? What's actually realistic? Because mind you, that was a 20-hour day that I did. Don't ask me why. I guess it was that like first year excitement. But instead of trying to make it this huge thing and falling short, instead shift your script, shift your project, shift your scene to whatever you do have access to. So instead of this grand ballroom where it's just me shooting it, where I would want sun coming through each of the windows, maybe tailor it down to be like a small dining room or whatever it is, to be able to be something that's more within reach for your lighting. I think that's one of the biggest things that I think I always found myself like embarrassingly so dialing back. And it was never in the time that it should have been, to when I was like, oh, like let's be smart about this before the shoot and let's pull it back. No, it was always like when people are there and I'm burdening everybody with me running around and I'm like, shit, maybe this wasn't a good idea. I think I'm in over my head. Um, so that's, I guess, if we were to twist it of how to take that bold step, I think that's because it's always the next jump if you want to do something really fun and exciting and cool, but do it in a way that again is applicable and realistic. I think checking yourself and kind of going at it from like a producer mindset is really important of like, hey, can you actually do this? I think that there's fun ways to get creative and do this really unique shot in a cheaper, more achievable, simple way. So I don't know if that directly answers the question. I think it answers a question somewhere in the world, but it's a story that really stuck out to me of like when I first started. There's one shoot in particular that actually never screened. I never finished it, but that's a
No,
song for
but
another day.
yeah, well, but that's the thing is that's, you know, understanding your limitations, right? Because as artists, as people in the industry, I mean, if you want to survive this industry, you have to be a type A personality go-getter,
Hmm.
or else you just don't make it in this business, in my opinion. So it's like all of us are always going to be wanting to over deliver because that's what we do, right?
Hmm.
So knowing that the balance between over delivering with what's doable and over delivering with you kind of telling yourself you can do it and not having that be achievable, which could then impact your future projects if it's with somebody that was important and these things. So I think knowing your limits and advocating for yourself is very important. And I think that, you know, Shane has even talked about that before, where he's like, I shouldn't have shot this, or I said no because it's like an impossible thing to do.
Yeah.
So I think that that's, you know, even for acting, knowing when to say no is, even though it's the hardest thing, it is actually the most, one of the most important parts of like being an artist in this business is you have to know when to take that
Yeah.
expectation. So thank you so much for touching on that. And I think like, and just my own question is, let's say Because you know, we have a range of people here at Filmmakers Academy. We have people that are at the top of the level shooting stuff and, you know, working professionals day in and day out. And then we also have a lot of awesome like film students and beginners and people that are maybe in high school or fresh out of film school. So let's just say I am fresh out of film school. I'm watching FA lessons and courses. I really don't know a whole lot about lighting, but I'm maybe watching YouTube videos and trying to learn as much as I can. Do you have like a go-to like lighting package that's like super, you know, for lower budget for people that are just starting out that, you know, hey, I would really work on like trying to experiment with a book light, building a book light or building a this, like what would you, if you had, you know, this is just my own kind of crazy question,
Mhm.
curiosity, like what would you then kind of suggest for them?
Just to make sure we're on the same page, in more of a direction of like lighting equipment or more style of lighting?
I would say both for maybe
Okay.
people who are trying to start out and they don't have everything and like something that's like a little easy but also looks really great and really
Yeah.
they could like cut their teeth on learning with that
Hmm.
style, you know?
Yeah. So if it's, I would say the first lights to get are probably your first two, we'll call it one and a half. I'll break into it. The first one in particular, hard like a Bowens mount chip on board light, because those are the most versatile things that you can do. So those come in a wide variety of like 60 watts, which are very affordable and cheap, all the way up to in LED world, freaking 5,000 watts. So, and the watts are just going to be the output of how bright you can get your LED unit. So, getting yourself a versatile chip on board light is definitely going to be your best first bet for a first light, because that is something where I can throw a softbox on it. I can throw it through diffusion. I can bounce it. I can bounce it off a wall. I can have hard sunlight. I can do all of the things. And then if you really want to get into it, I mean, now there's so many like RGB or bicolor lights to where it gives you the options, because you're obviously not going to be shooting all white all the time. So you can warm it up, you can cool it down. And it's really and I've got a video at some point on my channel that talks about like kind of it's more of asking yourself what you need out of it. But I think that that being a good versatile light is a great first package. And then at least for me, that's kind of where that second light option came about, because it was my particular approach, or what I had was it was these Aperture 20 watts that they're gone, they're disappeared. I don't know, nobody sells them, but they were just these like little tiny, again, hard sources. So I could shape my big light, my strong light. It was like a 120D. So you could get like a 100 watt or a 200 watt LED. And then I had these small guys, so I could call it my softbox was right here with my big light, and then I would take the small ones and have like an accent on me, or like a little rim light, or shoot it like up off the floor onto the wall and have like a gradient thing going on there. So I think getting yourself versatile lights in the beginning while asking yourself, what are my needs? Like if you just need corporate headshot talking stuff, don't sacrifice the output that you'll lose from getting a diverse RGB light, and just go for all a white daylight, because those are just gonna it takes up more of the chip of daylight, so it's gonna be brighter. Um, and then just from there, it's more of just playing around with it and realizing what can and can't this light do, and then start to learn how differently you can shape it. Because I'm always pulling, most often, a hard chip source as my first light, because it's just going to have you a brighter option, because you take 100 watts on an LED panel and 100 watts in a chip. This one's going to be brighter because it's packed a big punch in here. So just getting a versatile chip light would be a great first light, and then just kind of experiment from there.
That's awesome. Sorry, that was my own just, you know, question that I got inspired from what you were saying. So that's amazing. We're getting a lot of questions. So I'm like, okay, I need to
Keep them
hurry this
coming.
up. Okay, so here we go. So I need to move along. So anyway, this is our kind of like longer question. That I know we might not be able to dive into all of the aspects of it, but maybe touch on a little bit of this. And I know you've prepped
Yeah.
for this, Brady, and have some materials, which is exciting. So, is it Matthias, I believe is your name? So welcome. And I'm just gonna kind of like read it. It's quite an amazingly detailed, so I really appreciate detail. So I'm gonna kind of like try to get through this as quickly as possible so everyone understands. And I see that you're here. So really quickly, basically, he's been following your channel, Brady, for quite some years. Glad to see how quick you're moving and got the opportunity to
Thank you.
work along Shane and other professionals in the industry. I hope this question is not too long or my wording too confusing. So last year, he tried to replicate a warm key with magical cyan moonlight based on the WB and color temperature of your candle-lit night interior scene from your tutorial, but somehow his result looked totally different. He was facing two challenges, which is one, lighting in a small room with low ceilings. Two, could not light from the outside since he lives in the third floor and his window's like next to a street. So the setup was the key was a Gemini 1-to-1 soft with softbox and an egg crate. The backlight was a Nanlite Pavo Tube 2C6. The fill was a 1-to-1 styrofoam bounce. The background moon ambience was a GVM 520 LED bouncing off of the ceiling corner. And then no matter what he did, it looked unrealistic. Either it was too overly saturated, too subtle in color to be noticed. He could not find a sweet spot or the color he was really looking for. And the moon ambience looked different, looked direct and lit, even though he bounced it from the corner of the ceiling. So in the end, he was missing those nice cyan tones that he was looking for. And after the shoot, he looked at your frame again and noticed that those intense cyan tones that I was looking for were actually coming from the window, but not so much in the other pieces of the frame. So he said he could see the tones in the shadows, but it's still different than the ones he sees in the window. And then I guess this is because windows retract lights in a certain way that other objects, such as the piano or the sweater, don't, question mark. Sometimes when I look into rooms from the outside, they might be green, orange, blue, based on the light in those rooms. And I have the feeling a window intensifies the color of a light. Therefore, I was thinking, is this the only answer to use lights to motivate what is really there instead of forcing anything that isn't there? Or is there a way to fake the look that I was going for you to not have the possibility if you don't have the possibility to shoot from the outside? So is there a certain saturation level, intensity level you would advise what he should set the light at for a more realistic outcome? Or is this something that is only resolved in maybe color grading rather than baking in the look directly? So anyway, that is a very detailed question, and I
Yes.
think you have a lot of examples given that this is directly from one of your videos. So Brady, take it away, and if you need any additional context, I know that he's here. So
Amazing. I love that. So yes, there is a lot to unpack here. I'm going to do my best of answering this to its fullest extent. I think the best way to do this so it's beneficial for everybody is I'm going to screen share, which I believe is the reference because you attached it in the email of the video that we're talking about. And then I'm just going to reverse engineer this of kind of how I did it and just talk about some tips that way. So I may not get to the specifics of your particular setup, but I think that it'll be I think that we can reverse engineer this to where it's applicable and answers most, if not all of the questions. I just need to, screen sharing is the one thing where nobody really ever remembers how to do. And by nobody, I mean, that's probably just me.
you see the share button down there next to the,
Yes,
yep,
I
there
see
we
it.
go.
Okay, so we're allowing this. Okay, so let me see. Can we see this image here, this candlelit interior?
Yes, yes,
So
we
I
can.
believe this is object now if this is not the right one, Matthias, but I think it is. So this is the frame in question. This was, oh my God, this was years ago I shot this. So let's do my best of trying to remember this. So in a nutshell, you can see that we've got these moon tones that are outside. We've got this candle motivation in here. Those candles were not the key light. I stuck a aperture nova just off of camera right in like this little cubby. And that was just, I think I had like a rag over it or whatever. So that was like our warmth. That was taking the motivation from the candles and just adding more because the candles are just not going to be bright enough for a camera sensor unless it's a Sony nowadays. Anyway, and then we've got these moonlight tones that are outside, this really nice crispy cyan. And moonlight is always this question. We just did the moonlight exterior with Shane as well, talking about what color does moon need to be. It's always subjective. I went for like a cyan look on this. And Getting into, we'll talk about like color tones first, because there's the question of saturation levels and all of that. So I'm actually in especially a lot of circumstances like this, I'm not going into our saturation or our color RGB section of these lights at all, whether it's with gels or with settings internally in lights. This is all going to be within our CCT range, which is our Kelvin color scale of warmth of light. So these candles are like fires like 2200 Kelvin on that sliding scale. It's like 2200, 2000 Kelvin, really warm, up to like 2700, depending on how it's burning. So I set this aperture nova for like probably 2500 on like a fire flickery setting, so it's matching that. So it's still white. It's still technically in this white world, but it's just warming these things up here. So I've found that RGB a lot of the times, and not always, but RGB settings in colors, like actual colors, not white, will throw off skin tones, and it's very strong and it's very saturated. So I tend to use those very intentionally of where I really want this vibrant, colorful scene. But if I'm going for these tones that I want, whether it's blue, cool tones, or orange, warm tones, I'm going in this CCT range because that's just going to get me a lot better of a true, accurate white on your skin tones that makes them look a lot more true to life. So that's what I had here was just only that Nova that was right on that inside. Now to go to the Moonlight that's outside, I'm going to talk about, I know that some of us don't have access to being able to light outside. So I'm going to talk about this in particular, and then we can kind of brainstorm some alternatives to do as well. So this one, forgive me, I'm probably going to butcher exactly what happened, but I'm gonna spitball and break down my own thing based off of the image of what I see. So I know that I had trees in my backyard. Those that little texture that we see back there, I think that's doing a lot of the work. And that I just shot like a aperture 120D. It wasn't a bright light, but I shot that into the trees, similar to how we did in the big night exterior that we did with Shane, where he had the freaking condor up there with huge lights going quarter mile on a tree. I did the same thing, but it's a lot smaller scale. So I had that was set at 5600 Kelvin. So already you're seeing that 5600 Kelvin is going to be cooler, 27 is going to be warmer. So that's where we get this split of color tones between the blue outside and the orange inside. And then I put my camera's white balance right in between. That was probably at like 4000. So being right in the middle with your camera's white balance, it allows the warm to stay warm, but that cool to actually render cool. And it kind of gives you both splitting directions of it. So that's something that I'm doing there. And then it looks like I think I probably had some sort of panel that was actually shooting in the window, something gentle and soft. It could have been a softbox, but you can see it casting on the side of the piano, and into the curtains as well. So that's roughly the setup that was going, and that was matched to the same 5600 Kelvin. Um, but one thing I want to talk about is less is more with all of this. So first with color, saturation, less is more. I rarely will use any sort of, if I'm going into a saturation mode on a light, at 100% because it's just camera's digital sensors like stuck it all in and it starts to look all weird and warped. So pull saturation back to 75% or whatever if you've got to, 50% if you've got to go into color. And then intensity as well. Again, less is more, especially with Moonlight. These lights were very gentle. I could even argue that they could be a little bit too bright. It's all a matter of preference. Because I think that the goal of Moonlight, unless it's really intentionally your key light, is to maintain almost just a level, just exposure, just information there. It's not supposed to be super, super strong and super bright because that's just, it doesn't render that way in real life. So always just be a little bit more gentle. If you're happy with where it's at, maybe you want to dial it back just a little bit. Does that answer a lot of the questions? I think that I went on a big ramble there. I don't know if there's any additional questions off of that. Oh, sorry, the faking if you're not outside or if you can't light outside. That's how we'll kind of circle back and wrap. That's a tough one. because if you can't put lights, whether you're in an apartment high up or you just don't have access to the outdoors, there's a few things that I would do. Maybe in this situation, what I've done in some instances is pull the curtains all the way closed, and I've stuck little like tube lights between the curtain and the window just to glow a little bit of the sheer. So at least you're getting some sort of extension of level to the outdoors, and you can't see it, but you still have some sort of level on the curtains. Or there's the option of timing, shooting it at like that blue hour lower color light time of day, or lower light time of day. That gets difficult with timing, but if you can time that one shot towards the window and actually just have real outdoor lighting kind of accurate to how you would want it, that is something. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the best route because you only have like 30 minutes of that blue hour and it's ever changing. But those are just a couple of options of if you don't have access. Again, it does get hard if you can't go outside and light, but that curtains trick is definitely a good one. Um, or just framing the window out and like instead of shooting into the window, shoot into a part of the wall where there's not a window, and then put a mirror right here, like a household mirror, and bounce a light into that mirror and then into the scene. So then it's like that light's coming from the window, which is actually a mirror. Does that answer the questions?
Yes, thank you very much for
Oh, hello.
answering. Hi. And there's one thing. So the thing was, when I looked at the footage, I also set the lights to like 5,600 Kelvin and stuff, but it seemed like a very intense blue. And today, when I was looking over what it did back then, I saw that I was shooting in Blackmagic RAW,
Hmm.
but at the LUT Gen 5 film to extended video, because I kind of wanted some kind of LUT that can show me what it's going to look like in the end. Um, but that was totally different. So maybe the reason was that just this LUT that was on the camera didn't work.
Yeah.
I put it on the computer today. It was like yeah, it looked like gray, like like raw images, and then I was like,
Mhm.
actually, it doesn't look that bad at all. But when
Yeah.
I shoot with a camera, and let's say I don't have a monitor there at the same time, and just have this one camera,
Hmm.
what should I like? Why is it so different than when I look at your work and write down, okay, he has this light at like 2,200 and
Hmm.
this at 5,600, and then I do exactly the same thing, but it's just yeah, super different. So maybe a lot in color correction too.
Yeah, there's definitely some of the game comes into play in this color. I forgive me, I don't remember exactly what I did in the color grade, but I know that with scenes like this, I'm definitely kind of dialing in. Like I'll take if oranges render to orange, and I want them to bring them back to a skin tone. I'll kind of target that. And of course, I'm not a professional colorist. I color to my own work, and anything bigger I send out. But with that, I've kind of learned some of the tricks to do. So I'll take those warms and dial them back, or darken them, or brighten them, and then the like moon tones. I'll always find myself in post taking that blue of the moon and just pulling the saturation back even more and just dimming it down. So it's again just gentle. So that way, if it's brighter in camera, you still have that information on the sensor in the file, but you're just darkening it so it doesn't look like a deep crushed black, but it's just a very low level. So there's a lot that comes into play in the post side of things as well. Of course, it's always try to get it as best you can in camera, which can sometimes be difficult if you've got a LUT that like a preview LUT that it might not be the most accurate. I think that having an important preview LUT, kind of how we mentioned earlier with those phantom LUTs, it's really important because that's how you're making all of your adjustments. So make sure that you've got just like as accurate as possible reference LUT, and then just know sometimes I'll have like especially in Blackmagic, like an on and off switch for my LUT. So I just turn it off and see only the log image, and like kind of keeps me in check of like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here beneath all the color.
Okay. Is there a certain one from the standard ones that are already on the camera that you would advise?
Oh, and sorry, really quick to jump in. Brady, would you mind stop sharing your screen so
Oh,
we can
sorry.
see you guys? No, 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 don't apologize. Just so for the recording, we can see you talking back and forth.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you.
Yes, of course. Um, I'm trying to remember because I don't use Blackmagic all that often. I'm just having to relearn with my Pixis that I have. I don't. I recall, especially when I had my Pocket 4K, that I actually brought in one of those. It was either a Phantom LUT or a buttery LUT way back in the days that I actually installed onto it, and I didn't use the internal ones. I think it could have been because I didn't love the look of the built-in Blackmagic ones. Granted, this was years ago, so a lot has changed. But yeah, I think I brought one in externally.
So would you say, is it a normal thing that these pre-installed LUTs are like super far off?
I wouldn't say super far off. For example, my Sony's, I just don't love the look of the Sony ones that are built in. I like to have one that I know I've kind of vetted to be exactly what I need. I think that they work, but I always know that it's probably getting me 80% of the way there. And knowing that it's not the final look, but it's at least just something better than log for me to look at.
All right, cool. Well, thank you very much. And I'll just kind
Of
of like
course.
trial and error it, maybe just kind of
There
try
is a lot of trial
in
and error. I think
post-production.
a lot of the things that I've learned or things that I've learned that haven't worked for me have come in this like, I hate how this looks phase. Let me see what I can do differently. And then I try something completely different and I'm like, oh, I kind of like the flavor of what that's giving. Let me look into it more. Or I don't like it. Let me go this way. So trial and error is definitely a big name of the game.
All right, thank you very much.
Of course. Thank
And
you.
yeah, thank you. And actually, Matthias has been and told me a member of ours since like the early days of like Shane's Inner Circle, Hurlbut Academy, now Filmmakers Academy. So thank you for being a member for so long. We love having you a part of the community. And something like, listen, I'm not a cinematographer by any means. I wish I was. But I've, obviously picked up some things along the way with just working around it so much and being involved. Something that I've heard recently, and again, this could have absolutely nothing to do with what went wrong here, but something that I've heard is that different manufacturers of LED lights have different like readings of like Kelvin. So what you might be thinking and matching is 5600 or 20 whatever it is might not actually be what it is compared to certain other manufacturers. So again, I don't know
Yeah.
if that's really the truth. There isn't a scale for LED manufacturers, which is very unfortunate, meaning they don't have a scale that they must hit, whereas other like old-fashioned lights and more like non-LED sources, they have the scales of like this is what it is and they have to go by that. So that's just something I've heard a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might not be as accurate. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
just
it's
their
definitely
point.
something that as LED technology especially is evolving. I mean, 5 years ago, LEDs are not what they are now. It's advancing rapidly, which is great to be able to, get in a more affordable manner. But yeah, there's a lot of room for error with LEDs. I think with these old HMI or tungsten bulbs, it's kind of it's doing what it's doing, and there's a lot more kind of like black and white cut and dryness to it. But with LED, there's a lot of it can shift green, it can shift magenta, it can be a lot cooler than it renders. There's a lot of room for error as everybody else is kind of making their own chip in all of that. So there's a lot to take into account. It's a good point.
Yeah, and that's something that I know why like Shane and a lot of people like rely on light meters to really measure it and be like, is this what it's putting out? Because
Yeah.
sometimes it is a massive difference than what the input of like what you set it at is. So that's just
Hmm.
something to consider. Yeah, so anyway, again, I don't know how much that adds to the error, but it's something to consider and ensure that like you're checking those lights because a lot of the time it's just unfortunately not like there's no scale, so they don't have to
Yeah.
abide by that. So anyway, but thank you for that detailed question. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Brady, for answering that. You guys, we're getting some amazing questions, so I'm gonna go ahead and go to this next one, and then once we wrap this up, we'll kind of do a rapid fire to get through as many questions. So we're getting
Love
through
it.
pre-submitted questions, and then the ones that have just popped up on the call, we'll get through those once this is done. So this is a question from Scott Armstrong. The topic is basically cinematography approach and techniques. He has 40 years of experience in all the equipment, but work with people that are new or don't work at the level that he's at. He likes to set up cameras and lights properly, but I work with a crew that doesn't know anything, and the director wants to do things quickly without thinking much and little communication. How do I do my job as a director of photography with little qualified help and get lights set and get blamed for taking too long? That's a very, like, I hear this a lot, unfortunately,
Yes.
especially in areas that are now the new film hubs where crews are not trained, and it's like a, tax incentive and all these things. I hear this all the time. So what he's currently doing to conquer this is work faster, arrive early, and get gear set up by himself, do the job with less lights, except I did what I did, but not proud of it, which that's the worst feeling in the world. So what knowledge he would like to know from you is just find like out his place in the field, determine an acceptable timeline, wondering if I'm working with people that don't want to do the job at the level I do. I've watched FA for years, and I think I'm doing the job like I've learned, but the people I work with haven't seen the work that we do. So that's a great question, Brady.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a tough question. It's never a fun place to be in because it's at the end of the day, it's like if you're bottlenecked out of your control, it can be very, very frustrating. So I want to start with saying kudos to you for coming early and setting up lights on your own. I feel like I know that feeling. I've done that many times. It's something that I feel like we shouldn't have to do, but of course we want to because we care about the image and the art that we're making. So brownie points to you for that, Scott. But it's kind of tough. It's something to where you hope that the people that are hiring you and the people that you're working with can be receptive to, I guess, new ideas, making a better image being one of them. So it could be something to, and of course, every person is different. So I'm going to try my best to give the best answer that hopefully is received by the director. But a prior conversation of whether it's with the director and the client or just the director, whoever, whatever the workflow is for that, but just saying like, I really think that this would be stronger, kind of approaching it for the better of the general project. I'm sure that, or I guess I don't think that this is happening, but it could be taken in a general sense of like, oh, this is selfish. They just want something or whatever. But we're all, I think, in agreement that we're doing this for the better of the image of the project. Of course, we can kind of be selfish and want the most beautiful image. I do it, but having this conversation of just being like, well, I really do think that it would hit harder here if we did this, or I think that it's really important. Things are growing. Production is important. It leaves a good impression on people who are seeing, whether it's commercial or whatever. I think that having a nice production value or quality to your projects leaves a great impression. So having that conversation and saying like, hey, I think that we should really do this. And then if you've got, I don't know what it's like with your crew setup as well, but if you've got that relationship, say director's like, hey, I agree. How do we do that? Because we can't do more time. Well, then it's like, okay, well, I think our next bottleneck could be our lighting crew. Do we have the ability to maybe look for others, or maybe can we just get one more body on board, and budget just a little bit more? And then that gives the ability, because it shouldn't fall on you, especially to be the one to actually go and set up the lights. So say, hey, maybe can we budget to have a little bit more either people? Can we extend the schedule? If you're going over 12 already, it'd be kind of tough. But then just kind of find these compromises, and maybe at first you don't get to your Z point that you want to, but you're working incrementally closer to it. I think that baby steps it's still progress. Um, because or I guess because I've been in situations like that. I'll kind of circle back with this as well. I've been in situations where like we're low on time. I know exactly what I want, but the crew that I have are just not quite there. And that's difficult because it's like it falls on me because I'm calling the shots of what I want to do. But it's kind of like because we have slow hands. So what I've done to counter that with kind of newer individuals in like the lighting team is tell them exactly what I want to a fault. And I don't know if this is something that you're already doing, but tell them exactly what you want. I want that light set over there. If it's a safety thing, put the weight over the big leg of the C stand. All of like the things that we shouldn't have to say, but almost like be redundant and say like every step of the way, make sure that they know what it looks like. So it's almost like following an instruction manual. And that's one thing that I've found um, really helpful when I've got people who are just newer or want to volunteer and come out and learn, etc. So it's a tough thing, and I think it's a communication thing. At the end of the day, if people are just not receptive and they're like, "This is the way that it goes," and there's no fighting it, I think that there's only so much that you can uh, really fight to make it work. I think that at that case, it might just be something where it's like finding. I don't know if this is like your only crew that you work with or finding other crew to work with, but at the end of the day, there is always a bottleneck, and if that's it, then it's kind of like you don't want to just make your life miserable trying to fight for it when it's never going to change. So it's really a situational kind of I guess issue, but I think that these are a few things that I've done to tackle it, and either seen some progress or at least totally change it.
That's really helpful. And Scott, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, awesome. There you are. Hi. I actually had a few other like questions and just ideas to go off of like what Brady's saying.
Please.
So, one is where are you located? And then the follow-up is, I know this might be hard, but just an idea is again, are you able to talk to this crew and like, are you close enough to be like, hey, everyone, listen, you're in this, we're all in this together. I'm assuming that you want to be better filmmakers. I don't know if some of you want to be a cinematographer, but in order to best set yourself up, you need to train. You need to know these very basic things and even say, like, like resources like YouTube or Filmmakers Academy or like local film school ways for them to know even though they are working in the industry. It's like, unfortunately, a lot of people just, again, just do it, fake it till they make it, and they don't understand the lingo. So I don't know if you would feel comfortable just literally having kind of like a heart to heart with guys. It's really hard to work with you because you don't know these things. I've invested my time to learn these things, and I kind of expect that. And I don't know if you're in a place to say this, but you could even say, don't want to have to hire you again if this is not going to change, right? Because I'm assuming you potentially are hiring them, hopefully, or if it's the production company, talking to them about that. Those are just my thoughts of like kind of also talking to your crew and like demanding better of them because it's at the end of the day, if you're a cinematographer, your crew, it does reflect on you point blank because you're in charge of like all of that stuff. So it's they're being paid to make you look bad, which is not ideal. So just thinking about how you can take that authority and either say, I'm not going to hire you again, or either you guys go do this, or anything like that that might help.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks. Yeah, in
those
my
are great
I live in
points.
Washington State, a fairly small town, and all of the crew are volunteers. This is small films, not major projects and not high budget stuff. So these are folks that are just wanting to learn. Sometimes they've just volunteered to do this. Um, I've tried to do some training, but it seems as if by the time the shoot is on, they've forgotten it. But most of the time, they're very happy with what I do, but it's a small crew. So sometimes I'm wearing more than one hat. And I think a
Hmm.
lot of it is just a matter of I just wanted to just get a reference from somebody else that maybe that's okay the way it is and that I'm expecting too much. I think it's been very helpful just to kind of get some other feedback. But in one
Yeah,
case,
it's
I did something. The director was just uh, they moved and then they moved back to an original location, but the lighting had moved to the other location, and they didn't want to take the time to set the lighting back up at the first location again. And so I had an exterior in one case that had the nice lighting, and the other one, the exterior was just black. So I didn't like that
that's
because now it's not intercut well. But
hmm
they were says, well, it's taking too long. We got to move on. Want to finish this up, so we'll just accept it the way it is. And if that's their choice, that's their choice. But I kind of wanted to find out if there was something that I could do different or better.
Yeah, it's tough because yeah, in situations like that, it's somebody else's decision that reflects on you.
Yeah.
And I've had that's a great point you brought up with kind of like the moving back and forth the shots. A lot of the times that because some people just they kind of think chronologically to the script or the day shooting or whatever. So I'll go through and I'll say like, hey, wait, why are we going away from here and then back to that scene and then back to this daylight scene? I was like, can we combine those? Is there any reason why we can't? Because it's a win-win for everybody. You save time, setup and breakdown is going to take 30 minutes to an hour or whatever. Let's combine them, even though this happens later in the film. Let's just do that all here because it's the most efficient. Of course, it doesn't always work that way with talent being there or time of day or whatever. But that's also like instead of, speeding up time on lighting, let's just save time on scheduling and just going through of when can I switch this? Let's shoot all the interiors here and then go outside, etc.
In this case, it was a crew issue where
Hmm.
it was time had changed, but the location hadn't. Different cast members were in this particular one, but they didn't tell me that they were going to do this and then come back to it. So some
Yeah.
of it, the communication,
Hmm.
and so
Yeah, it may have
I
to be
want,
something where you almost have to insert yourself into this communication thing of like really
yeah,
ask, because that's what I'll do. I'll probably over communicate is like, what's happening? Like, what do the next three shots look like? What is happening for the first half of the day? Paint this entire picture to me so I know of any curveballs. And then if I know of a curveball while my crew's in a down point, they can start building more frames outside to come back to that or do whatever. So it's I think if it can't be like a crew speeding up thing, I think it's communication to be in the know, so you can call the shots more efficiently of telling people what to do and when. Of course, it's never a perfect world. This is all just
yeah.
theory. But it's helpful to just, if we can sprinkle a little bit of the communication, a little bit of that training and all of that, hopefully it'll at least leave some sort of lasting improvement.
Yeah, I
Well,
agree. And I just have a quick follow-up question to that. When you say they're volunteering, like, can you just be a little more specific about like what this crew atmosphere is? Like you were getting paid or everyone's just there? Like how is it working in terms of the hierarchy?
yeah, nobody's getting paid. It's a independent small film, short film, and they are people that want to do this, and so they're just asking. It's mostly a film club, and the members just want to do this. And I have 40 years of experience, and I have all the equipment, and they're not real familiar with all of the equipment, and I think they want to have fun. They want to produce films and get it into a film festival, but um, perhaps mostly this is my question is that maybe I'm at a different level than what they are. But I'm doing it just to keep my hand in the business and do it. Keep in practice. I've been in television for years and now I'm doing more film. And so I'm wanting to just get better myself.
Oh yeah, and thank you for adding that clarification because that's super important. And I think it's amazing that there's these film clubs and there's ways for people to come together to work on their craft, but also 100% can be very frustrating for someone who has the amount of experience that you have, and then it's almost like you're working with less than film students, people who just want to do things. So I would say like one of a few things for you. One, it's amazing that you're involved in this. Two, I would say really ask yourself if it is more trouble than it's worth, and if you could get your own colleagues together that are professionals and could do something that's similar to this film club where no one's getting paid, they just want to make fun things, but do it with people at your level. That's kind of like, because it would drive me crazy if I had a bunch of experience and then all of a sudden it's like, because here's the thing, you view the craft and take it seriously. They're just doing it for fun, which is fine. But unfortunately, that's two different ways of thinking. And even though it's experience for you, it's probably not the best in terms of like your time, your efforts. And I think you can do what this film club is doing outside of them with professionals, and also to use our FA community. I mean, there are so many people on this call, on our platform, that want to shoot stuff all the time. I mean, somebody, Tucker, who I met with Brady at NAB, Brendan and I, he had a camera package that he had extra for a few days and was like, do you want to shoot something? And all of us were there having fun making something. So it's like, just know that, drop in the community, because I guarantee you, even though you're in Washington, a lot of people would come from LA, would come from Oregon, would come from, you know, all around the areas to just make this happen, you know. And if you have connections and a place for people to stay, and you could kind of be like, hey, if you pay for your flight, I have all the equipment or whatever you want to bring, you'll stay for free, I could help, you know, with whatever you can, then I think you could really orchestrate something special. And I'm seeing a lot of people on this call that I know are very interested in making art. I know I am. I would love to come up there to shoot a short or something, right? So I think just using our community feature and dropping that in, because all of us want to do things. And I think that we don't care about being paid sometimes when it's working on our craft or trying something we've never done, or for our reels, right? So anyway, that's like my 2 cents of like what I think you should do is maybe create your own film club with all of these people that are on this call, and really make it like in the community, and kind of be like message. You can DM people if they've posted their reel, if you like their work, DM them and say, hey, would you want to come up and help me with this? You know, I know we have people that have been doing this for so long that still want to, like you, get their hands dirty, stay at the top of this, you know, everything, and you know, have experience. So anyway, that's my 2 cents, is use our community, and let's build our own version of this with people that are professionals that take it serious, you know.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Of course, of course. And good for you for doing that and putting yourself in there. I mean, that's like, most people would have walked out, right? Like most people would have not stuck with it. So the fact that you did shows how much you care, but I would say let's do that. And I know Bruce would love to like collaborate, and so many of our, you know, Steven, I see so many people here that I know are like eager, that show up to all of our events, that love to collaborate. So let's try to find a way to make something happen, you know? So and they're dropping their Instagrams, by the way. So please, guys, drop your information in the chat if you want to be a part of this. If you're watching this from the platform, you know, go to the community feature. Everyone, really, let's like make our own version of this, because I think we could create some amazing things. So anyway, sorry to go on that little tangent, but I think
Great.
that
Thank you.
I think that was an awesome thing to just inspire all of us. And I think Brady offered some amazing insight in like in the moment what you're dealing with. But
Yeah.
let's do that when it's crew that somewhat know what they're doing and that care, right? So anyway, thank you. So now,
Thank
Brady,
you.
we're gonna go on to more of like a lightning round situation.
Let's do it.
Because we have a lot of great questions. So this is kind of like, you know, answer it, but we don't have the back and forth. We just kind of go it
Yeah.
on next, right? So
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of great questions on here and I missed a ton, so I'm sure that you read them off for me, but I want to try to
absolutely.
get to as many as possible because
Me
there's some
too.
great ones in there.
Me too. So here we go. So somebody, I do not want to pronounce this name. We have people from all over the world, which is so beautiful. I think it's Savan. Oh my gosh, Savanujan. I'm so sorry if that's mispronounced. Has a question about S-Log and Rec 709. Can you clarify the differences and their specific use cases and give a brief explanation about that?
Yes. Okay. So I'm visual, so I might scrappily draw something as well. But S-Log is going to be it's all color profiles of a camera, so it's really, you know, saying how let me phrase that better. It's just pretty much how dynamic or wide of information it can read. So S-Log is actually an even better way of saying it. I'm not even going to draw. Sorry, I'm trying to. You threw me off with a lightning round. So S-Log is just going to, you know, record a lot broader of information, higher brights, lower shadows, and a lot more color information. So that's going to be great if you're taking something into a project and color grading it professionally after, fantastic. But there's also other times where a project needs to be like turn and burn, like you film it right now and it's out in like 30 minutes. That's something where Rec 709 would be great. So Rec 709 is pretty much like it's a different color profile to where it comes out already with contrast and saturation and kind of a great base look. So it gets you like 80% of the way there. It's going to restrict your highs and your lows, so you get a little bit less of like dynamic range, meaning how bright windows can be and how dark shadows can be, etc. So it's gonna kind of restrict you, but it's great for fast turnarounds, clients who just want the footage right now, etc. But then if you really want to massage and fine tune things, S-Log or your just log profile for whatever camera it is going to be your better bet. Think of it as kind of like, say you've got like a charcoal painting that you just finished, and then you want to like, make changes on it, that's S-Log. But then once you laminate it, you kind of can't make as many changes into it, and it's kind of baked in there. It might not be the best analogy, but it works in my head of like, it kind of just is this locked in, set in like sealed envelope kind of profile within reason.
That's amazing. There we go. Next. So somebody had a question. This is great because Brady, you just dropped your 2025 reel, which was awesome. So somebody has a question about shooting projects. Matthew Levin, about shooting projects specifically for the reel. So as a storyteller, he knows how important telling a story is, but what about just shooting things that show off a certain ability in lighting or camera movement? Did you shoot things specifically for the project? Because I have the same issue, or not issue,
Mhm.
let's just say philosophy with acting, right? Sometimes I have a scene where I can pull that because it was shot beautifully, I got cast in it, I get my hands on the footage, bam. Other times I'm like, ooh, I've never been able to play this character, don't know when I will, let me just shoot this
Mhm.
myself and have that. So anyway, would love to know that for you as well.
Well, how convenient you asked this. Because tomorrow, not to plug myself, but I'm gonna plug myself. I'm doing like a whole follow-up to the reel with tips, and that's one of the tips in them that'll be live tomorrow. But I've not so much in recent years, like this year, I think all of the projects that I shot were shot. But I've definitely shot for the reel. And I mentioned even like you don't even need to make a whole scene. Get one shot. If you're like, I really want this like to do a wide night exterior shot because I haven't had the ability to do it how I want, then shoot that. Nobody's maybe people ask, like, I want to see that project, but it's like, yeah, I wish I could see the project too. So sometimes it's great to just because it's like with a reel, you want to promote the work that you want to shoot. And if you're still trying to get more work to shoot that, to bring more work in, go make it on your own to prove that you're actually able to do it. So then somebody can hire you. So there's nothing wrong at all with shooting for the reel.
And you honestly, you have to. And the amount of times that someone asks, like, what's that project? I mean, I don't know. I've never really gotten asked that personally. And I
Hmm.
don't think a lot of people, they just want to see that you can do that. And I think that, example, we were saying with the night cinematography, right? That's
Yeah,
something that we know a lot of agents and people look for when they hire you, because
'cause it's hard.
that's the hardest thing to do, and showing you on different ranges of budgets, right? So again, there's no natural daylight, it's all you making use of what you can, right?
Hmm.
So that it's like that's not only a great challenge for yourself, but I highly encourage anybody on this call, on our platform, who does not have any night cinematography in their reel, you got to get it in there. And we just dropped that masterclass, which has a lot of great, things that you could learn from, and also even seeing, you could tent a part, if you have to bring people inside, we tented an exterior to shoot
Yeah.
a little earlier. Like, there's so many magic things that you can do to like make it a lot boiled down, even though yes, it is hard. But anyway, please guys, really, really, really have that in your reel, because I've heard this not just from Shane or from his agents, but I've heard this from so many other people that I've encountered and said like, hey, what do you look for in a DP reel? So just try to get that on your 2025 list. I would say that's, shoot for the reel, shoot for the reel. So anyway, that was awesome, Brady. what are some this is from Sai, I believe is his name. What are some practical tips in capturing shadows and silhouettes at night with minimum light? Ooh.
Kind of segueing nicely from our last conversation. So some practical tips of capturing shadows and silhouettes at night. That is a good question.
With
Uh,
minimal light too.
with minimal light. So okay, so we'll kind of go backwards on it. So with the minimal light, if it's you don't have a big package, don't shoot yourself in the foot and frame your shot up with a very large scene. Kind of set yourself up nicely to have it, whether if it's outside, I'm assuming. Maybe it's inside. I'll do a little bit of both. If you're outside, get yourself nuzzled in like a nice corner, nice trees, whatever. So it's like you don't have a huge scene to light. You're kind of giving yourself a better canvas to work with. And then inside, lighting for silhouettes. So silhouettes are always going to be backlit. Kind of stripping it down simply here. Lighting is always going to be behind you for silhouette stuff. I've found that hard light does really nice, or controlled light does really nice. I think that name of the game here is maintaining these shadows, maintaining this darkness. You want to keep your light controlled. So if you're working with a backlight from behind you for a silhouette, and that's a hard light, you're going to probably maybe want to use barn doors or flag it off because you want to keep that light from not spilling throughout your entire room or exterior wherever you are, because then it's going to bounce around. It'll fill in the shadows. And the shadows are what make your silhouette so impactful and strong. So light control, if you're working with soft light, you're going to put like an egg crate on it, or again, use some floppies and flag it off and you really want to think of like, you want to control your light. So say this freaking glass, if your target is just this, you want to keep the beam of light just this, whether it's soft or hard. You don't want it to bounce around, because the second it bounces off of walls, it's going to bounce and fill in this shadow. It's going to bounce and fill in this shadow. So light control is going to be the name of the game. And you can do that with like, if you don't have a lot of materials, like black wrap, or just stick poster card on each side of it. Just blocking out the light from being somewhere you don't want it is going to be really important. And then I would say hard light I love for silhouettes. I think it because hard light is it's like the sun. It's like you've got brights and darks. So it's going to be a very strong contrast, as opposed to soft. You kind of fill in the shadows, and it eases off that roll off.
Great. Now we have another night question. I think that's just what we've segued into.
I know.
So this is great. Lucas, I believe, Babst is the name. If you're shooting at night or creating dramatic images where the exposure is underexposed, do you set the exposure to 0 and adjust it in post-production, and underexpose it there? Or do you underexpose it straight away during shooting? For example, Blackmagic cameras tend to have issues with noise in the shadows if they aren't properly lit.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's always the question of how do camera sensors handle the low end as well. Um, I I like to say yes, I do expose brighter, 100%. I'm going to expose more, because the second that you crunch those darks and there's no information there, it can be blotchy, it can be noisy, you lose all of that data and it's gone forever. But if you expose north of that, then you've got this higher latitude to where you've still got the ability to crunch those blacks as much as you want to. Um, for me, I like to kind of balance that uh exposure a little bit in camera, just because it helps for me personally just to see what it's going to end up looking like. So I might bring it down a little bit more and push that, but I'm still going to make sure I'm using stuff like false color to really not clip the bottom end of the sensor. But if it's something like, say, Blackmagic, where I know it's not going to handle that low end of that gamma curve very well, I'll expose even brighter, just to be sure of that. Of course, be mindful of your north end and don't clip your highlights. But I'll bring it at kind of like that plus 0.3 EV range. And then sometimes something I'll do, just when metering and kind of getting the look of it, if it's hard for you to visualize, oh, it's too bright and I can't really see, it looks like daylight, I'll just like rack the iris down. I'll close down the iris. This is on a lens. It's not a cine lens, but I'll close down the iris so it actually darkens it up just to preview it, just to see like, okay, so it's lit like this, but when we darken it down in post, it'll look more like this. And that obviously I open it back up to shoot, but it's just to give me and anybody else a visual of like, I know it's bright right now, but it's going to look darker. Let's just darken it up. And I learned that from a great DP friend of mine. He was doing that on set. And I was like, oh, that's a great way to visualize, like break yourself out of that. It looks like day. Why is it so bright mindset?
Absolutely. And also, I think something that Shane dropped in the comments a bit earlier is he was saying that the new Blackmagic Ursa Cine 12K sensor is finally resolving a lot of like images. And he said that are really now close to Arri, Sony, and Red. So I think that's going to be a big shift in terms of, you know, again, not everyone has access to this camera, but the good news is they're moving in that direction, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be doing a first look of it coming up soon, like we did with the Burano, which is very exciting.
Ooh,
So
I'm excited for that.
yeah, we're going to be having that soon. So stay tuned on that. Now, this is somebody, Jonah from the platform. He's an 18-year-old from Missouri, and he just wanted to know what is the best way to like be a part of the film industry, to get started with possible like internships, jobs, or volunteering. Any suggestions that you have?
Yeah, a few different suggestions. I think that because it's such an exciting time, I think that we're in such a great era of social media and connecting with people all around the globe and everywhere, both local and across the planet. So one thing that I especially did, I still do it all the time now, is just make internet friends and message people, follow people, comment on people's stuff, like just create these friendships with other creatives, with other DPs, with other writers, with directors, with producers, because ultimately, like, uh, it's I've had all these friendships where it's like I met them like 4 years ago, and we're just now coming around to shoot. But it's like you make all of these friendships to like when the time comes, it's so great, and you start to like talk with each other, and passively, it's like always like, hey, what did you do for this? What did you do for that? You're sharing all of these thoughts, and it begins to like be this great network of sharing and growing together. But then in a sense of getting on set with things, um like in the now, because the networking aspect is great, but it might not result in like getting on set right now, especially if wherever everybody is, they're in smaller towns, so there's not as much of a film industry. Things like what I did, because I was working in Vermont a lot, and there's not a lot happening in Vermont, and I was very early on, so I think this is very applicable. I did a lot of kind of creating my own film sets. So I would try to like advertise or market to people, reach out to brands, reach out to companies and say, hey, I want to do this for you, create a pitch deck, send this out. And then whether it was just myself or I've finally accumulated a few of my crew friends as well in Vermont, then I've got a crew, and then we get the job, and then we're on our own little film set, and we're kind of creating what we wanted to do. So whether it's that or making spec stuff or passion films as well, it's kind of the same thing. It's like creating what you want to do, and then stuff like reaching out to if there's any local universities. A lot of them will have film schools as well. A lot of like kind of major city hubs as well will have Facebook groups as well, or I think there's like Discord groups. It's kind of, I've seen a variety of things, or Reddit, and just starting to reach out and say like, hey, who's out here? And if there's not a Facebook group, then maybe start one. But I think that there's a lot of resources that are out there for like kind of like the major city hub or local cities, etc. Kira, I don't know if you have any other, I feel like you would have a lot of great insight on that as well.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. That's really like that's amazing insight. I feel like it's harder for me just knowing like coming from Los Angeles and being here. It's
Hmm.
always really challenging to think of like if I wasn't here and like in other areas that don't have as much, but everything you listed is I think so spot on. And also I would say yeah, the whole Facebook group thing, it's so mind-blowing how powerful those are like for film specifically, and they still are.
Hmm.
You know, before the pandemic and even during the pandemic, I was doing a lot of PA work to just do stuff. And I literally was like on, you know, we need a production assistant Los Angeles group, but I think there's a lot of other ones. And maybe like, you know, not so specific with production assistant, but I like, you know, I got a lot of jobs from there. So I think that's pretty fantastic. And to just reach out and make one if you don't have one. So that's amazing. And yay, it's an exciting time to be, you know, doing all of that. So thanks for being here. And I think the next question is, I believe this might be Yev. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. He said, "Hey Brady, do you have a preferred method of previs? I'm developing my first feature. For previous work, I've used storyboards, shot designer, but he'd like to step up and communicate with the director and team. So just wondering what you do for previs."
Yeah, I'll say that it's something that I do sparingly, more so out of a I don't know, maybe sometimes laziness, but when I do for the bigger projects, it's important because one, you've got a lot of people you're stringing along with you, so you need to know exactly what you're doing. You can't just wing it on set. Um, Something I like to do is I'm a very like kind of analog person. I feel like my brain connects better when I'm writing things out. So I'll draw a lot of like I'll just whatever paper I've got, I don't know, napkins, grocery bags, whatever paper, at least to get my initial thoughts out, I'll plot everything out. Say I know this is what the room looks like. I'll draw it out, and then I'll just kind of put these talent like these whatever are blocking there, and I'll say like, okay, this is the look I want. What would happen if I put this light here? And then I start to map it out in my head. I'm like, okay, would this work? And then what happens if I add this? Would it conflict? So that's kind of my first process. It's just like these early on troubleshooting steps. Um, and then from there I'll start to bring it into then I have to bring it digital. I'll either do a Sidus Link app has a great way of like creating lighting plots of you build out the scene, you can go in, you can put in, I've got a 1200-watt light. Okay, I'm going to place that here, and then you can start to draw it out. And this is something where once I've developed my look, I'm going to send this off to my lighting team and say, hey, here's the plots for this week, here's the plots for tomorrow, whatever, we're going to follow this 80% of the way there and then make our final tweaks. So it's helpful, like whether we're pre-lighting the day of or day before or lighting on the day of, you know what's happening. So that way, when it really comes down to these tweaks, it's not like you're shifting everything. It's like, okay, this almost works. Let's just move this a little bit here. I don't typically do as much previs myself. If so, it's a really scrappy, poor drawing. But I know that there's a lot of I'm blanking on all the programs names. Somebody please put it in the comments. I'm sorry, my coffee's wearing off and I'm getting tired. But I know like the one that Shane did, Kira, on that, like a beautiful artist went through and like created this entire look
Oh yeah, there's
of the
like,
shot listing as well. So it's more of just
yeah.
seeing the shots as well, because lighting isn't everything. And so you kind of have to know where the shots are going to. So I don't know if that was a custom artist or if that was a program.
That was an artist. What I will say is I just dropped you know, Shane does like the very kind of like old school ways of just like top down diagrams. So I
That's
just
how I
dropped
do it. Yeah.
I just dropped the link for you there in the chat where it's basically all of the blocking and lighting diagram icons, and also he uses Graphic, the program that's on Mac. And then you could literally download all these diagrams and like use them. So that one, and then I know that Justin Jones, one of our other mentors, uses a program. So let me find it right now because he actually like did a workshop on this. So I could find this for you because I think this is super important. Oh, is it
Mhm.
Blender? Blender.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Oh yeah, Blender is a
Blender.
good one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say again, just because I think again, if for people that aren't in Los Angeles and can't attend warehouse workshops, like they also have recorded it and put it online. So just I'll drop this. He did an entire Blender workshop, and he's also one of our mentors, so you could directly message him.
Justin's amazing.
Oh, he's amazing. So I would say I'm gonna try to find this for you and put it in the chat.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think they're like doing a new like a new thing where I can find this, but let me look through this, but you can definitely watch it for sure. And then that's great. Oh yeah, they have their own
Yeah.
membership now. So that's a cool thing. So I'm just gonna drop this link, everybody. Again, this is for warehouse workshops. One of our other mentors,
And
Justin.
then I don't know if this is going to work, but this is the Citus Link app. It's again likewise for the top downs. This is just one
Mhm.
from a last film I did. It's something like this where I'm sending it out to, I don't know how, my camera's kind of struggling, but it's essentially that kind of deal of like I'm blocking that out, and then that's what I send to my gaffer, and I'm like, hey, this is where everything is going to go. Just because to me it works. I've got an engineering side of my brain where I'm like, this is exactly where it needs to be. And it's like this engineering blueprint, I
Absolutely. No,
guess.
absolutely.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I've used a Citus link and I've used others, but for this, because it's my first feature, I need to communicate with a larger
Hmm.
team. So, I have decks on shot deck, Milano, and
Hmm.
whatnot to, communicate with everybody. Um,
Hmm.
Although I'm not the director, but as the P, I still like, you still have to communicate with props, you still have to communicate with set design, PD, and
Hmm.
everybody there. So the more communication, the more open, the better. Um, so yeah, thanks. Yeah, Citus Link is great for lighting, for sure.
Yes, I agree.
And I
Yeah,
would
yeah,
say,
and I still like to draw stick figures, you know,
Hey,
I still do
we're on
that.
the same page with that.
Yeah. Little
no,
sun.
absolutely. And I would say, again, if you are interested in like learning more with like Blender or seeing other ones, like we do have some on our platform with Shane's Way. And then also, I'll just drop Justin's Instagram. If you tell him you're an FA member and you add questions or, certain things, again, he is one of our mentors. So he's more than happy to like answer questions or drop it in the community and tag him. You can physically say at Justin Jones, hey, can you tell me your experience with Blender? And he can like really and we're actually planning on having him record and create a lesson for our platform on that, so we're really excited. But anyway, oh my god, I just realized it's 11:34. You guys, this has been I'm like so sad because there's still so many like amazing questions here that so let me just do, if it's okay with you, Brady, because I know we're going a
I'm
little
happy to,
over.
yes. Because
Okay.
I know that our fire round has turned into like not a fast round at all.
I know. It's so
So
hard
I'm
because
down to I want to answer a few more if we've got them. And we'll make these quick and then we'll just keep cutting on.
Okay, fantastic. So Stephen Leon, who's amazing, he's one of our members, he's here. He asked like, what are your thoughts or advice on how we should market ourselves on like the social media side, and what's your best approach to creating a show reel as part of your portfolio, which I know you might have a video coming out tomorrow
Hmm.
about that, but maybe the more of like the social media based question too.
Yeah, I'd say for the real stuff, definitely check that out tomorrow because I went in depth to like what has worked for me. Not to just send you off somewhere else, but it's a fire round. So I gotta be quick. I want to get the first part of it. Marketing ourselves. I think that doing more and honestly fake it till you make it. Like anytime you're doing something, make sure we're posting it like on set, doing this on like blah blah blah. So it's because I did that a lot when I first started as well, just like almost pretending I'm doing more than I actually am. I think that we all kind of have to do it, especially with this competitive market that we're in a way, depending on where we're at. So I think that um, posting all the time, making sure like I feel like that's one of the big things for me right now. I feel like a lot of things it's social media driven right now. And then just sending once the reel is out, like done and completed, sending it to local houses, local production houses, other writers, other directors, saying, hey, let's collaborate, let's do something, do free things with other people because then you meet other people on set and then they know who to call when they've got a paid project. That's one thing that I've learned as well is I've done free work, met people on set, whether it's a producer, writer, director, lighting guy, and then we're working together and getting paid down the line. So that's another way to kind of market is like in-person stuff. I'm a very in-person guy. I want to have fun on set, build this chemistry, and then work together again.
Absolutely. And also something about social media because this is something I never expected to fall into 4 years ago when I was starting to do Filmmakers Academy social media. And something like I've learned a lot and also have obviously built Lost Objects, which is a social media company alongside Brendan Sweeney. And we basically our mission's like to help filmmakers with social media because it's a very crazy landscape. And so the good news is we're actually doing a live seminar on January 20th at 10 a.m., everybody. So that's all about social media in focus for filmmakers. So if you're an FA member, it's included in all like premium FA membership levels. And if not, I believe it's like $14.99 or something to join. So please, I made a massive presentation and I'm really excited because this is something, as the industry gets more competitive and as we're facing all of these things, like knowing how to market yourself is essential. So yeah, and Brady's done a great job with that. So I think that, you know, I'm excited to dive into that. And I also might use you as a case study, Brady. So just, you know, watch out.
Please do.
So anyway, so that was awesome. Let me see, maybe we could answer one more question. There's so many. Brady, this might be a good one from your perspective, okay? So somebody is a camera operator based in New York with Carla with 7 years of experience, planning on joining Local 600 and SOC. What are your thoughts or option on joining the union to work on bigger projects?
That is a big question. I think that I can only answer it to the best of my abilities, considering I'm not union with anything. So take this all with a grain of salt. I think that there's pros and cons to both sides. I think right now, I don't know the state of how everything is work-wise. I've been hearing a lot about like the union is almost oversaturated right now at this current moment for the amount of work that's going on there. So there's a lot of, I guess, back and forth thoughts of joining that. I think that there's good in everything, but I feel like I don't know because I'm not in any unions out here, so I don't want to answer just kind of like, you know, randomly and not really know. I don't know, Kira, if you've heard more because you're in LA, so there's a lot more union stuff going on there. So if you've got
Yeah.
insight on that, I would love your thoughts.
Absolutely, because the reason I also wanted to ask you is I know you're non-union, and I think that that's a
Hmm.
really interesting and good point to have, especially if you're in a smaller market.
Yeah.
In terms of the union, this is always a question that so many people are going to ask. What my 2 cents of this is, uh, don't join unless you've hit the ceiling of you've done everything you could with all these non-union projects. You have the experience, you have all the footage that you want, you have all the experience, and you're like, okay, I do want something bigger. Then I would say absolutely take that big step, and it's a massive investment. And if you feel like you're ready for that, for me, with SAG, it's a very similar thing. I did not join until I was a must join because immediately once I joined, my auditions were cut 3/4 because there's not as much work or the competition is so much more fierce. So it's just
Hmm.
something to keep in mind in terms of like when I was non-union auditioning, I had like 20 auditions a week. Like it was insane. And I was like, holy crap. And then I joined the union. I'm really excited. And then now I only have 10 every 2 to 3 weeks, right? So just know that. Like, but the Society of Camera Operators, I will say, is way like it is a very solid, like when I was talking specifically with like Local 600, right? But SOC is an amazing organization that I know a lot of people like. We just had somebody drop in the comments say like great trainings, you know, and all of these like it. So as it does have like non-union benefits is what I'm seeing, and I know a lot of people in the SOC who love it and think it's an amazing organization. So do you want to speak a little bit about that? Yeah, because you just commented this.
Sure. So I recently became SOC, and they have training with as cam up with wheels and the Panaflex. So they do have great trainings. Because it is a non-union association, you can work anywhere and everything. You can work on big films, on series, or you can work a weekend with your friend and shoot. The thing with SOC, and if you're part of it, it's more so as you become a trusted person. So for example, let's say that you're in the race in an interview with another camera op, um, for an indie project. Being an SOC member will give you the advantage of this person will actually show up, and they have, an ethics, a professional ethics to it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's so. It doesn't necessarily mean that the other person doesn't. But as far as paper wise, it does give you a little edge. Um, so I would say to everyone who is trying to cam up, SOC is a good thing, and it's free for some levels. So well, it's not free. It is not free. It is way cheaper than being local 600. That's for sure. So
No, this is such amazing insight, and thank you for adding that, because I like, that's great to know that it is a non-union affiliation, but that you're a part of it is kind of like, you know, that stamp of, it's like kind of like, I would say, the ASC, right? In a way, right? Like in a way, it's like, as a camera operator, it's a society, you guys are all working there. It's, you know, you guys are in it together, you're trusted. So I would say that's a great first place to set yourself apart, to also still be able to work non-union and union. So that, I mean, sorry, non-union, yeah, and union if you are union. I would say that's a great place to be trusted and to start there. But if you want the bigger jobs, of course, those are going to be union 100%. And if you are ready for that investment, just understand that the competition is that much fiercer. So it's not don't join, it's join, but also there's a lot of people that are in the union, that have been in the union for a long time, that have established themselves, that are your competition, right? So I would say that's something that's just important to remember. And again, if you feel like you're ready for it, go for it, but just understand that it is, like, for me, it was a bit jarring. For some people that I know who were working a lot non-union, it was a little bit of a, oh, this is cool, but I'm in a new environment. I have to make new connections. I really have to try maybe a lot harder to get work than I did before, right? So anyway, those are my 2 cents on like on that. I don't know if anybody has. Oh yeah.
Yeah, quick thing, sorry. And for local 600, you can join as different things. You can join as loader, cam up. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna join in as cinematographer, because you also need a whole bunch of hours and a whole bunch of things for that. So you can join in different levels, different job descriptions. So
And that's really great to know as well. So thank you for that, because again, you know, Brady and I, we can offer what we've heard, but you have the experience. I know a lot of our members have that experience. So please, anybody else who has their thoughts, put it in the chat, because we want this to be as helpful and informative as possible. So you guys, I'm sad because there's so many other questions that I'm looking at that I'm like, these are great, but I know we've gone 15 minutes over now, and I want to be appreciative of everybody's time here. So what I will say, to just kind of, wow, there's a trash can outside. Apologies if you guys hear that. But we want to wrap this up and just quickly say thank you, Brady, for giving of your time to be here with all of our members, some of us non-members who were able to join, maybe followers of yours from your channel. We're so grateful. I will just say that we have a lot of exciting upcoming events here at Filmmakers Academy. First and foremost, on January 20th, we're doing the massive social media and focus that I will be leading. It's going to be like probably 2-hour in-depth presentation of just what you can instantly do to help your social media, and also easy posts that aren't so overwhelming and difficult, to just make sure that you can get something out that's still of quality, which is really exciting. So everyone mark your calendars for that. We're going to be dropping the links in the chat for this as well. So that is going to be on January 20th. Lydia, which is, you know, our amazing co-founder, Shane's wife, and amazing businesswoman and former CEO of this company, is going to be offering office hours on our platform, which is super exciting. So she's going to be doing bi-monthly virtual in-platform events where she is just going to be there to talk about, maybe it's health and wellness, maybe it's taking care of yourself, maybe it's like something new she discovered that she really wants to you know, share and have it be an open discussion, because especially with everything that's happening, I think having a space for mental health and also wellness is so needed in today's day and age, especially in this industry. So she will be doing that. Also, our CEO, Brendan Sweeney, will be offering office hours as well, which is so exciting. That's for you as members to come in and be like, hey, I would like to see more of this, or where can I find this? Or like, literally, this is meant for you guys to just come in, ask questions, talk film, be a part of our community. and stay tuned for that because you'll be able to ask questions and just chat. And then we'll be having an Inner Circle podcast with Shane, Jordan, Brady, and Lydia and Jeanette. So Jordan and his wife and Shane and Lydia had an awesome podcast, and we're going to be releasing that January 28th. Also, super important, everyone, if you haven't already, we did drop the recording of the commercial production director and cinematographer workflow with Shane and Jordan. That was awesome. It's now on the platform for rewatch, so please rewatch that. And then Brady, in terms of Brady, he has so many awesome resources. I posted them in the chat, and we'll do this again. He basically has, you know, a YouTube channel if you aren't familiar, and I'm pasting this now. He has an Instagram. Be sure to follow up with him. His link tree has a lot of awesome things as well for like equipment he uses, other resources, and you could email him if you have any inquiries or ideas or suggestions or anything. So on that note, we have a lot of awesome content coming up. So the Night Cinematography Masterclass, if you thought that was over, it's not, because we shot so much content. It would have been a 7-hour masterclass. We had to cut it to 4 hours. So we're going to be releasing the build, which shows all of the build of the fly swatters, of the rigs, of the condor rigs, the candlesticks, everything. So that is going to be coming out soon with Brendan Reel and Tom Sigurdsson, Shane's key grip and gaffer. So we're super excited about that. We also have a generator etiquette course coming out as well that we shot last year or the year before, which is super exciting. So again, a lot more G&E focus, which is always really important. And yeah, Brady, any last thoughts? This was awesome.
All I want to say is thank you, everybody, again. I can't stress that enough. This was a blast. There were so many great questions. It was awesome to come on here. Thank you to FA and everybody there as well. I feel like since we didn't get to all the questions, Kira, that only means we've got to do this again at some point. So I'm going to leave that on your side of the court.
Absolutely.
But this was a blast. So thank you guys all so much. I really appreciate it. Fantastic questions. I had a great time.
And the last thing I will say, the questions that have not been answered, which we do have them here, but please, you guys, Brady is a part of our community, so you can tag him. He has an account on our platform. So if your question did not get answered, like Joelle, I know you had a question, a few other people here, go in the community into the discussion, and please just at Brady Bessette, and you will, Brady, as a user, get a notification,
That
and
would be
you
great.
can answer the question. So let's please continue this conversation on the community. That's why we have it. We also want it there so everyone who wasn't a part of this conversation can chime in, can learn, can look. So please do that. Stay safe, everybody. Please donate if you can to the wildfires, to all the victims out here and the industry people. It really is a hard time, but having events like this and all of us coming together really just gives me really a lot of hope. And this is a highlight after a really dark week. So thank you all for making my week better. And I'm just so blessed to be part of this community. Thank you, everybody. And here's to a better start to 2025. All of us working together on projects. Use the community feature. I want to go to Washington. I want to make projects. Let's all make this happen. So anyway, you guys, have an amazing rest of your day. Stay safe. And thank you, Brady. We're going to do this again for sure. So
Sounds fantastic. Thank you, everybody.
all right. Bye, everyone. Please stay safe.